All right, team. It has been months since Paul and I have done the New Jersey High School Strength Coach podcast. And man, we got lazy. What happened to us? I have no valid
Lazy but
excuse.
not lazy.
That's right. I don't have a valid excuse. Usually at night, I will admit, Paul's like, hey, we could do this podcast. I'm like, I'm crushed. I don't have the energy to do it. But I started drinking coffee recently. And so maybe that's why I'm like all wired up, ready to go.
I don't know. That's a rabbit hole to go down once you get into that coffee, man.
I got coffee from Trader Joe's, and I got to tell you, there's this like in New Jersey, there's this shortage, right? There's an egg shortage, there's a work ethic shortage, there's a customer service shortage, and but when you go to Trader Joe's, eggs could be like $2.50 to $3.50. The food is priced really well. Is there a Trader Joe's by you, Paul?
There is, but it's in Bridgewater. It's too far away. Wegmans is the closest one.
And Wegmans is not cheap.
No, no.
Wegmans, I know you're listening. I know the CEO is out there listening. You're ripping people off. You know it. Paul and I know it. The people listening know it. Now we're going to get sued.
No, I'm an Aldi guy. I love Aldi.
Really? I
Yeah.
went I went to Aldi up in Cornell when I took my daughter to a tennis tournament, and it was like a Twilight Zone. Kind of freaked me out. Maybe it's different by
It
you.
is.
Maybe that's why you
It's like
like
you're in
it.
a public market.
So normally we
But
don't talk about food until the end. So I have a pretty cool food story. We'll get into it at the end.
all right.
Don't want to disappoint the people, but all right, the New Jersey High School Strength Coach podcast is brought to you by NHSSCA.US, the National High School Strength Coach Association. We had our state clinic last Friday. For anybody outside of New Jersey who's thinking of doing a state clinic on a Friday, I thought it was great because the coaches took a professional day, and
Mhm.
and it almost doubled our attendance compared to a Saturday. What do you think?
It was fantastic. I mean, 75 coaches and they all hung out. I know a couple had to leave early because they still had to coach later that day,
Yes.
but man, I'll tell you what, attentive and people who wanted to be there to learn. And sometimes on a Saturday, like you said, people are giving up their time and they're like, oh, all right, I'm just going to go. And they may not be all in, but I thought everybody was dialed in.
Yeah.
Our partners were dialed in with a great lunch and a dinner. I know you'll talk about that, but
Yeah.
overall, it may have been one of the better days we've had. And no offense to Frank Cremonese out in Pittsburgh or Kevin O'Neill for any of the regionals. Hell,
Yeah.
even the regional I did on Zoom, that was it was a crazy great day.
The I think that in New Jersey, I'm not sure what it's like elsewhere, the professional development opportunities are not super impressive for us in New Jersey. A lot of times the coaches get lumped in with something that's not really, it's like professional development for the whole school staff, and it's not really getting them better. And so even in the beginning of the school year, I had to say to my department chair, listen, none of this stuff is applicable for strength and conditioning. Can I go to the north side of town to meet up with Mark Rosamilia and talk about training and what we're going to do? And I think I called you up. And so when you are finding yourself as a coach in professional development that is not developing you, I think you should speak up and say, listen, I need an opportunity to do maybe independent study, which I do every year. I do independent study for the professional development. So we're going to actually address topics that were big concerns to the coaches that were brought up to us often during the breaks and during the Q&A panel. And they also brought it up when Chuck Donahue Sr. was speaking. And before we do that, let's give a real quick shout out to the partners that showed up at the New Jersey High School State Clinic for NHS SCA. So we had Mondo Flooring, Coach Ethan Reeve representing, and Mondo took care of lunch. And it may or may not be true. They brought these amazing cookies from that deli. Oh, we still got them. Yep. I can't believe you didn't eat it. How
It's
did you
as big
not
as
eat it?
my head.
How did you not eat it? Is it reserved as a gift for kids during the lifting?
I got a whole nother box. Yeah, I'm giving them out for the quality lifters recovery.
And when you're young, you can have the cookie as long
Zach,
as, yeah.
Zach, and everybody out there, 520 calories. Let's go.
To be young again. And speaking of
Yeah,
nutrition, my kids are the lunch for my own two children lately has been chicken and rice. We bought them a thermos, each of them a thermos,
nice.
and my son didn't even have the thermos. He didn't care if the chicken and rice was cold. He's like really hyped up on how he's eating. My daughter is like in the morning, Dad, can you cut the chicken for me? So now I'm like, I'm totally busting on her. I ask Alexa to cut the chicken, Alexa, the Amazon computer, but they're eating great. And we're trying to really just push to get away from as much processed food as possible. But when you're young, a cookie here and there is not going to hurt you. Cookies every day, we're going to see it in our athletes.
Yep.
So Mondo came. Coach Ethan Reeves spoke about some of his early training methods, like consulting with an equipment company with a glute ham raise to put a split down the center so your man parts don't get negatively impacted. I thought that was cool to hear. And we had Mike from Play. What was Mike's last name up in Massachusetts?
Poidomani. Poidomani.
Boydamani, forget about it.
Yeah.
Mike, may or may not have worked for the Sopranos for all we know. Northeast connection.
Yeah.
So
he's from Connecticut. He's from Connecticut.
Yeah, he's total gangster. He was there. Let me pull up my email. This was a great one. Greg Upgren from Output Sports came. Output Sports is a new partner for the NHSSCA. And Output Sports, if I'm correct, is similar to kind of like a workout tracker, like Team Builder.
Correct. I think they do some bar tracking as well. I have their flyer here. I can't find it in my mess, but yeah, I have an email set up where I got to send him and set up time to talk to him as well. So
nice. And then we had Steve, who's a strength coach at CBA. He was representing for Team Builder. And he doesn't work for Team Builder, but he utilizes them. And something interesting Steve is doing, by the way, is hosting weightlifting meets at CBA. Mm-hmm. So he is getting his athletes involved in Olympic weightlifting. It's just called weightlifting. I know the terminology. Just like our boy Teddy Rasmussen down in South Jersey, TNT Strength and Conditioning, he takes his athletes to powerlifting meets. And he told me, he said, Zach, you really don't need to do anything different. Train them like athletes, but teach them the rules of the squat, bench, and deadlift, the competition rules. And he said, you're still doing your plyometrics, you're sprinting, your accessory work, you're training them like athletes. And we're incorporating, the barbell lifts. So it's really cool to see that. And of course, our state coach of the year, Joe McAuliffe, he does that also. He utilizes powerlifting as a means, as like one of the means to boost athleticism. He's trained high school youth. He's trained guys that started with him in middle school, gone on to the NFL. So he knows what he's talking about. So it's really cool to see coaches doing that. And we just had a powerlifting club approved at my school. Nice. And so the goal really with that, Paul, is going to be not so much powerlifting, end of story, but I've noticed that kids were maybe on a sport team freshman year. Then they quit because I think they didn't experience much success, but they got into lifting. And lifting, it's kind of you versus you. And now I see the confidence coming, but not enough to be a competitive wrestler or football player or lacrosse. And what my hope is that maybe senior year, they've gained, 2 years into it, they've gained 20, 30, 40 pounds of muscle. They're strong, they're fast, they're confident. And then they say, you know what? I'm going to go out for this sport now. Mm-hmm. And it would be cool to see that, to see how the weights can impact their life and get them back to what they maybe, how do I say this? It didn't turn them on. It almost defeated them, right? Wrestling was just too hard for them. Football too hard. But now that they're strong, fit, confident, powerful, they're like, I could do this and I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
And
gives them purpose.
gives them purpose. So I'm excited for that. And let's get into this topic that not the strength coaches, predominantly the sport coaches were struggling with. Do you want to kind of elaborate on what they brought up so we could segue in?
I know the first one after Coach Donahue was just support from not only administration but from their sport coaches as well. I know two or three coaches came up and said, "How do you get that?" And truthfully, I don't have the whole package. My administration, as far as our principal and our AD, are completely on board, but everybody else kind of just it knows what I do, but not on board. I'm not sure exactly what they know I do. You know what I mean? So um, I know my principal stops in. I know my AD stops in. They follow Instagram, and they really love the weight training process. Um, Sport coaches. I have some sport coaches who are here in the room, and I have some sport coaches who I don't see until testing the next year. Going into it.
Right.
So we'll finish the season, and they'll send an email out, and whether that email falls on deaf ears or not. So I know two from my conference asked me that question too. They were struggling with that. And I said, there's no magic bullet, or it's just training the kids as hard as you can and getting the kids to understand the benefit and the value they're getting out of the weight room. And also, don't go home and tell their parents and the parents. So sometimes the coach on board really doesn't make that big of a difference if we can get the kids and the parents.
Yeah. And your football coach, Casey Ransone, spoke on leadership and culture, and I thought it was amazing. He had a lot of references to Jocko Willink. So I went and started putting the Jocko Willink books on my desk. And I think, what Casey said really hit home to me. He said, Zach, I'm in the weight room as Paul's assistant during the spring and summer. And even with me in the weight room, the football coach, some of the football players still will not show up. So he
Yeah.
said, I don't think we're ever going to have complete buy-in. And my buddy told me, he said, Zach, you can't focus on those who don't show up or who don't support. Focus on the kids who do show up, because if you're always worried about who's not supporting, who's not showing up, he's like, you get negative. You kind of start like turning the corner and being negative. So he said, you see a kid in the hallway, don't just be like, oh, where are you? Just say, hey, man, missed you out of lift this morning. We had a great one. You're missing out.
Yeah.
That's it. Move on. And I need to hear those things. And I love to share that, because I think that sometimes sport coaches, they might see a busy video on Instagram and then they think that's the whole picture, the total picture. It's always like that. I believe every strength coach in a school is missing at least one or two teams, or 75% of the teams train year round. The other 25% show up only in season, which is really the backwards way to do it, or they don't show up in season. They're only off season. And so we all struggle with this. We're struggling because we work with humans. Humans are unpredictable. We're working again with teenagers. Sometimes I look back and I have to remind myself, at age 14, 16, 17, I was not the most coachable kid, although I would have loved to have had somebody back then. They didn't mentor you or speak to you in depth. It was kind of like, hey, get tough, or hey, get your ass in here. Or it was kind of like very black and white.
Yeah.
Chuck Donahue said that Southern Regional did not get to where they are without road bumps and obstacles along the way. He said it took time to have the right department chair for physical education. It took time to find the right sport coaches who were invested in gaining knowledge in strength and conditioning. So they have a massive school like you, a regional school. They have a phys ed paraprofessional. They call him a phys ed aide, who runs the weight room for grades 9 and 10. The wrestling coach, who I believe is also an assistant football coach, he does grades 11 and 12. So during the day is all in season. Then Chuck Donahue Sr., who's a retired phys ed teacher, retired sport coach of 30 plus years, he runs the after school program. So they essentially have three strength coaches on staff. Most of us are what I call a one man, one woman army. And so you may not have a lot of support, but you got to focus on changing the lives of the kids that walk through the doors. And I think the next question or issue that they were concerned with was lack of equipment. They felt like when they saw your building, your weight room, like, whoa, we don't have anything like this. And that's why I tell people when I started at my high school, the weight room looked like a tornado went through.
Yeah.
Nothing was put away. There was dirt and grime everywhere. Nothing was organized. And you have to, I took this from you, is I don't know if it was the best thing, but it was one of the greatest pieces of wisdom ever shared with me. Is like you said, Zach, turn every kid into a coach, and also turn every kid into like you're a team. Like they will help you clean the weight room, they'll help you organize it, they'll help you come up with t-shirt ideas and competition ideas, because we get so caught up, we kind of get in the weeds and we maybe lose a little creativity. They'll help you. You just got to
Yeah.
bring more. You got to bring those kids on. Today, I had some conversations with kids about like, hey, listen, I don't see you after school. I only see you here during lunch. How are you going to play baseball or lacrosse if you're always telling me you can't get a ride? That doesn't make sense. They're both after school activities. And sometimes if I'm too like harsh with a kid, they won't come in. So I had to say to the kids, I had to like, look, here's another like book on leadership. I've been reading and just immersing myself in this. There was a Jocko Willink video that Casey kind of put me down the rabbit hole on Jocko again. It said, if your style of leadership is not working and the way you try to get it to work is to be more intense and more aggressive, he's like, then it definitely will not work.
Yeah.
So I had to say to the kids, hey, man, I love when you're in the weight room. I hope I get to see you in the weight room again. And by saying that, I had 2 kids show up who I really love to see in the weight room. And I was like, man, is that all it took to
Yeah.
just tell them I love to see them? And then they come in. You forget what it's like to be 15 years old and like overthink when a coach tells you something.
It's hard for him, and Casey, when he talked about that, saying the right things, that communication piece, where by saying we need you here, we love to have you in here more, that gives the kids more courage. We talk about this with Jeremy Boone a lot in our leadership group. He calls it courage versus confidence. And he doesn't like to chase confidence, because confidence usually shows up when the kids are sure what's going to happen. Versus courage, they don't know what's going to happen, yet they have to step in that room and they have to show up and do, whatever is on the board that day. So we like to ask the kids to chase courage a little bit more, to have those sophomores step up and say to maybe a senior, hey, that's not the way we do things here. You need to be better than that. And use that language so that the senior may take a step back and go, you know what, that's right. And that at the end of the day, with the Jocko video, that actually builds more trust in the team when that happens, versus you saying shut up to that kid
Yeah.
back. That's going to be kind of like a culture killer.
They
So
don't like
a
that.
lot of a
Kids
lot
don't
of things I
respond to
took
that.
away. Yeah, a lot of things, and he said that they go into threat mode right away, and once they're in threat mode, you lose them. You
Threat
lose
mode,
them.
you're right.
So give them that. Tell them to say, let's show a little more courage every day, to not only
Courage.
show up, instead of confidence. So instead of chasing confidence, we build more courage. And as a dad, I've started to use that a little bit more as well. To think that, all right, how would I talk to my son or daughter as well?
Mm, yeah. And look, sometimes I have to rip into a kid if I've
You
tried the
do.
nice way 6, 7 times and it's not working. Then I got to tell him, listen, man, you cannot come back here because you show no effort. You're distracting people. I've given you opportunities to lead. I've given you opportunities to maybe rectify a mistake, and you're blowing it off. You're showing me that you don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And then the way I kind of turn around is I say, you're not hurting me, but these guys are your teammates. And how are they going to trust you if you're not listening, if you distract them? I need you to make them better. Can you do that? I'm going to give you this last chance. Or if you can't do it, maybe come back next week. But sometimes like that hard line of like, you're out of here, it doesn't work. That
Yeah.
being said, in my private sector at the underground strength gym, here and there, if I have a kid that's just um, sucking my energy, taking my energy away from the other kids, and he's, I always say, I go, you're not lying to me. You're lying to yourself when you create all these, 100 fabricated excuses. I had to email a mom today and say, listen, we're going to cut the membership early. We're going to cancel it at the end of this month
Yeah.
because we have tried for many months and even a year plus, and he's proving he does not want to be here. And it's different when I just cannot accept another parent's hard earned money from a kid that's not doing the work. I just
Yeah.
can't do it because I know what it's like to bust my butt for money and pay for my son or daughter to go into training. So
Yeah.
that was, what the concern was. Yeah, the lack of support. You got to build it. You got to go grassroots. There's a lot of that, by the way, in the professional development area of the NHS SCA website. So that's why we told members, or if you're not a member, sign up. It's $100 a year, which is $8.50 a month, if I'm doing the correct math. And then I think a lot of people, whether it's coaches, adults, kids, they don't go on websites. They go on YouTube and Instagram. Kids
Yeah.
go on TikTok to learn. You got to take a break from that. I actually just sent them. I go, dude, stop sending me Instagram motivational videos. I go, it shows you're not working. You're just sitting on Instagram. He's like, you're right, coach. Thank you. But go into the NHSCA website, click professional development, and you'll see presentations and articles and PDFs on how to start a program from grassroots, how to fundraise from nothing, how to go from volunteer to part-time to full-time in a public school. So that's where you're going to learn how to take the kind of ground zero starting, the grassroots starting, and get the ball rolling. And I shared that video of like what our weight room used to look like and to where we are today. We got new flooring, which made it look great. But before that, the new stuff was we slowly got new barbells, added kettlebells, some fat bells, and that was pretty much it. And bands. The thing that gave it the clean look was the turf. And now we're trying to get some other equipment. And the other thing, the crowded weight room. So I've been posting in our Facebook group, and I'll train large group like football, with wrestling, and then a girls team, soccer or softball. And that comes out to 80 to 90 athletes at a time. And so when I have a bad day, I don't blame the kids. I don't blame that other coaches don't show up. I just look at how can I get better? And so I reach out to you. I reach out to other coaches, and they just have me say, simplify, get them moving, incorporate some short competitions. Yesterday, our competition was so simple. You had to get with your group. I have football in these small groups, and each person had to do 100 push-ups, and then they had a very small hurdle. They had to do 50 lateral jumps over each side. So I didn't want to do anything that required weights or waiting to pick up a barbell or dumbbell, or there was a shortage of this. And it was a challenge, and there was going to be one winner. That's it. And it inspired them to work and compete and be one as a team. And one of the teams only had 2 kids when they have 7. So I said, okay, you guys got to do 125 reps of each because you're missing 5 guys. And I let the kids kind of come up with that. So you got to get creative with things. And, speaking of Jocko, he's got that video good. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of equipment and the weight room's overcrowded. Good. I'm trying to twist everything to a positive. I could go negative real quick, but I'm like, I got a quality problem. I've got almost 100 kids in one group. What if I had kids that didn't want to train with me? I got kids that want to do it and are not being like freaked out that it's busy. And to me, that's awesome. I'm excited for it now. It like fires me up.
Yeah, that was Coach Ransone's mission shirt one year. It was good. It said on the back, good, and nobody knew. So
Oh,
that was the first day of practice. That video came up on the screen, and it talked about that. It talked about, hey, not ideal situations. It's raining outside. Good. We're going to figure out how to play in the rain. We're going to figure out how to throw and catch and do those things. You know, don't have the helmet yet. Don't have our helmets in last year, all of them yet. Good.
good.
We're going to find out. Yeah, we're going to go practice. Everybody's going to practice, and we're going to do collision stuff so that we can learn how to tackle without our helmets on. Whether it was using the hawk tackle or something like that. So those were things that he really pushes home. And next one, it was we trust. It's just trust in the process. That's it. No matter what you think we should be doing, trust what we're doing, and that's what's on there. Yeah,
What?
it was a
Oh no, go ahead.
it's been fun looking back at those missions, still following them. They haven't gone away. We're still, that's kind of like the floor. We're building the floor up each year, and each year we're adding something that we still have to do, but then we're adding something new every year. And it's been a fun ride with him. And that he wants to continue to build that culture here at Hunter Central.
And you're saying kind of like build one thing. That should be a real simple goal in your strength and conditioning program. What one new thing can you add? Can you add one new piece of equipment? Can you add a new kind of angle to how you're going to implement the training? I'm going to implement technology, or we're going to do a simple test. Your simple test might be I'm going to vertical jump test
Yeah,
once every 3 months. So add one new thing. I heard a cool saying from a business coach, Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. He said the best way to stress yourself out is to remain the same, to not grow. And I agree with that. So if
yeah,
I'm in the same place, it's stressful. I need progress. I need to evolve. It makes me feel like proud of myself. One thing that's would be a cool topic to address a little bit is I did a I hopped on a Zoom call yesterday with football coaches from the Shore Conference here.
yeah,
So it's called the Shore Conference Football Coaches Association, and a lot of them were really hyped up when I spoke about training the incoming freshmen differently. Eddie Hernandez was on, who's at SJV. He understood that, but the other football coaches didn't quite grasp it. They were trying to teach them the barbell lifts. And I said, what you want to do is build a foundation of strength and size and also coordination. When you build muscle, the muscles now coordinate together, intra and inter, so the together and within they fire. So I told them, I said I did a lot of 5 sets of 5. And if I had a less crowded group, I could turn some exercises into 5 sets of 10, which Jim Wendler does with his big but boring. So it's like you'll do a 5-3-1 with your barbell lift, and then you'll do the same barbell lift lighter for 5 by 10. But I told them the freshmen do probably 8 weeks of dumbbells and body weight before they touch a barbell. So goblet squat for 5, followed by 5 squat jumps body weight, 5 sets of 5. Then you're going to do 5 push-ups, followed by 5 recline row. If I maybe pinpoint that you're powerful and strong, I might say, hey, Paul, instead of recline row, you will do pull-ups. Or Paul, you're crushing those push-ups. Do 10 instead of 5. Or Paul, do 5 clapping push-ups instead
yeah,
of 5 regular push-ups. Everybody's doing push-ups and everybody's doing a body weight pull, so it's easy for me to coach. Reverse lunges, 5 each leg, holding a dumbbell in the goblet position, just hammering the basics. And then at the end of every workout, guys, we're going to do 5 military presses, 5 curls. And when you're packed, you can't even hold 2 dumbbells. So you're doing
yeah,
a one-sided curl and press. And you just got to kind of list dumbbell exercises and bodyweight exercises and put together like 2 to 3 different workouts, repeat them for a month, but
yep,
make progress in them. Then the next month, just switch up the order a little bit, switch it up a little bit to keep them excited, but they're still doing the same exercises, but with slight tweaks. And
Mhm.
that stuff builds a foundation. So when I do want to teach a front squat, it's easy. When I do want to teach a trap bar deadlift, they're strong enough. I've built their core, their trunk. I've built their back doing the goblet squats, shoulders, arms. Try teaching a weak kid how to do an exercise, and you think the kid is a bad listener or you're a bad coach. But the bottom line is the kid is too weak to hold positions with the
Yep.
barbell. So that's a big thing I emphasize to them is put your incoming freshman on some sort of introductory dumbbell bodyweight program. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Those workouts are hard. You should, I tell coaches, do them yourself and you'll be like, damn, these dumbbells kick your butt.
Yeah. Split squats
Yes.
blow anybody up. And when we got the new weight room here, that gave me that opportunity to train the freshmen different. And I can tell you, there are our movement going into our strength is tremendously better. These kids don't have a drop of testosterone coming in. So everything we're going to build is that neuromuscular strength, their patterns, their sequence and order, front to back balance, inside to outside balance. All of that's going to get dialed in so good that now when they have to push weight, they're doing it the right way. Joey Burgles does a great job with that
Yes.
down when he looks at his stuff. You know, we bodyweight squat, we goblet squat, and we Frankenstein squat. That's the end of the summer. Their Frankenstein squatting is the last thing going into football season. So our hinge movement is going to be a kettlebell hinge, and then we'll go to a high handled trap bar, and then we'll go to a low handled trap bar if they can do that. Then it's the season. That's basically what we're doing.
Yeah.
We do a lot of ups, we do a lot of reverse lunges. We will do split squats. Our pushes are going to be push up, and like you said, they could be regular push ups, they could be hand release push ups, they could be feet elevated push
Yes.
ups. Any type of push ups. And if they're doing that before the season, we're on dumbbells and we're on tempo dumbbells, slow controlling it and pop it up. So we're doing that. Our pull ups are, like you said, the recline row, either with a bar or the TRX. And before the season, we're doing pull ups. So
Also
we try to
carries.
hammer the, yeah. Oh, well, carries, that's
That's the
absolute.
I told them, I said, um, if you probably don't all have sleds, right? So I said, my go-to at the underground strength gym is carries, calisthenics,
Yeah.
sleds, med balls. And here's the other thing, man, I've learned from implementing a lot of sprinting and not getting into the whole technique, right? When you were in elementary and middle school playing manhunt, we didn't go to a speed coach. You learn to run fast when somebody's chasing you and you
Yeah.
got to hop over a fence and hide in somebody's backyard. Okay. I told them, I said, you'll be amazed at if you keep up with year round sprint work, 3 to 5 sets of like 100 feet, 2 to 3 days a week, you have this high baseline of speed. And I also told them, you mentioned the split squats. I said a lot of kids can't squat because their ankles and hips are so tight. So Pavel mentioned this phrase or this term. He called it strength stretching. So when you do lunges and split squats, you're strengthening, but also stretching that hip flexor. And if you watch kids do lunges, you notice their ankles are very wobbly. Well, we're going to build ankle stability. You know what else gets kids strong? Movement prep, jog
Yeah.
forwards, backwards, side shuffle, karaoke, power skip, hop on one foot. And a lot of times I don't have them hop on one foot till we're like 3 weeks in because I don't trust that they're strong and stable enough because, I don't want to harp on physical education, but when I taught elementary phys ed, I did jump rope with grades 1 through 5. I routinely get high school kids who cannot jump rope. And so go back to some of that old school military and physical education stuff that gets the body moving. Bear crawls. I know you do a lot of crawling, builds ankle mobility and shoulder stability. Stuff that you wouldn't think gets them strong is getting them strong.
Yeah. Big toe mobility, ankle mobility, all of
Yes.
those things with the crawling. And Zach, I mentioned this in my talk. We want to make kids more athletic. We don't want to
Yes.
make them better athletes. They'll become better athletes if we make them more athletic. When we were kids, there were no speed and agility classes. It was you went from playing rundown to maybe go and play in power, learn how to throw the ball up and hit it by yourself. throwing a tennis ball against the wall and finding a square. And how many times can you hit the square? My
Yes.
uncle was National Phys Ed Teacher of the Year in Bridgewater. His name was Bob Powell. He passed away a couple of years ago. But he got a grant. He spoke all over the country about, if you remember the term lead up games,
Oh yeah.
games. You know, that was one of his coin phrases that he used to talk about. That, and there was a guy out from Springfield College where, by the way, my son just committed to play football now. I'm throwing
Yeah,
that plug in
baby.
there. Um, but he would have phys ed where he would teach kids. He'd put squares on the wall, and for a minute they'd have to kick a soccer ball as hard as they can towards that square with their right foot only. It would come back to them. They'd stop it, kick it again. Then they'd have to do it with their left foot.
Yes.
Then he'd get the balls that they could throw for a dodgeball, and they'd have to throw with their right hand and hit that square. And then they'd have to throw with their left hand. Made kids more athletic in phys ed versus just trying to make them a better baseball player or better hockey player or football player. That's what the
Dude,
crawling, I think, does, and those things.
I graduated my undergrad health and physical education the fall of 97. So technically it was like January 98, but I finished student teaching December 97. All these lead up games you're talking about is how I just naturally understood to have regressions and progressions for all the lifts. I utilized what I learned through physical education because they would say before you play football, what are your lead up games? What are the skills that you're building? I do the same thing with lifting. Today we had hang power clean on there. I said, if hang power cleans is something you haven't done yet, right? You haven't been here, you're in and out, you go front squats instead of hang power cleans. The other option was a kettlebell clean and press. And kids who have been kind of in for a while, they went with a heavy medicine ball shouldering. But I had a few options for them. And by the way, some of the kids are naturally pulling from the floor and they look great doing it. The majority are in the hang position, but it's these lead ups and then what's a progression to it. And then, okay, you're going to be playing baseball soon. Let's protect the hands and wrists. Just give me
Yeah,
doubles while everybody else does triples. If you want to do a single, just do a single. But I'm giving a lot of flexibility with high school kids because I don't think they respond well to, it's this and that's the only way to do it. But I love all this. I took some notes. Now, let's let's talk about food. I have a food story. Do you have a food story? We always talk about food. I have a food story. Do you want to share a food
my
story?
food story is I've been crushing these cookies every day. I don't know
You
if you know.
have? I can't believe
No,
you kept the box. I think I let me just be honest here. Okay? With the cookie gods watching me, I don't want, any bad blood with I think I ate 3 cookies that day.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
one, but I've
I'm
had
not
a
buying
couple
it. I
more
don't think
since
you
then.
had I don't believe you had one in it. If the cookie gods listen to this podcast, did you really only have one on that day, Paul
One, I
Collier?
had one on Friday, but I've had several since
Oh,
then.
I knew it. I knew once I mentioned the cookie gods, you would come clean.
Yeah,
You see, when the cookie gods are watching, they know.
they
So,
know.
all right. So I visited you a week before or 2 weeks before the state clinic. When did I
Yep,
visit?
2 weeks.
Yes. My family went to Florida. My kids had this midwinter break from school. And I was like, man, I got to go and see what Paul's doing. And it's also good for the soul. You step out of your own environment, you get inspired watching somebody else. It was basically like implementing my own family day.
Yeah, it
So
was
I, I
awesome.
I went up to visit, and you're like, let's go eat. We'll grab dinner. We went to what's it called?
Longhorn, long.
Longhorn Steakhouse. And I don't know what steak I was gonna buy, but you're like, I know what I'm getting. I'm getting the what'd you get? A New York strip steak
We got New York strip, 12 ounce.
and a loaded baked potato. And dude, that steak and that potato was so awesome. That was a Thursday. My buddy's 50th birthday was the Saturday after. I was like, hey, let's go out to eat. Meet me at Longhorn. I'm like, I have to have that
Nice.
steak and that baked potato was beast. So Longhorn, if you're listening, along with Wegman CEO, like hook us up with some sponsorship here. Hook us up. That steak and potato was amazing. And I don't know when the last time I ate a New York strip steak, but they crushed it. So that was Longhorn up in what town were we in?
We're in Flemington.
Flemington. I mean, beast. And by the way, then the next week when my kids came home, uh, my wife and I went to the Amish market. I picked up a bunch of potatoes and I made baked potatoes that way. So what you do is
Nice.
you wrap the baked potato in tin foil, you put it in the oven for 25 minutes, then you take it out. You put butter or a little olive oil on both sides, melted butter, I did, and then salt on both sides. So the tin foil's off. You go another 25 minutes. Then you got yourself that beast of a baked potato. And then you slice it open and kind of like mash it together. And you can add bacon bits, cheese, sour cream. That's farm boy eating right there.
Zach, truth be told, 2 days after we went, the kids were out doing something. I took the wife. She didn't even order. I said, 2 New York strips, 2 loaded baked potatoes, and
Boom.
broccoli. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Yo, you got to have this." It was a good night. It was only 2 days later.
If me, so there you go. Me too. So if Longhorn doesn't sponsor us, I mean, I'll boycott. I don't know if I could boycott the place, but they better be, as they say, y'all better recognize.
That's right. That's right.
They better recognize. So that's my food story. The cookie, we gave people two food stories today, so I hope that inspires them to leave us a 5-star review. It's like a
Yeah.
gentleman's agreement now. We gave you two food stories. You should be giving us a 5-star review on Apple. You should share this podcast with other coaches, share it with administration
Yeah.
so they can listen while they're driving to work and they hopefully get inspired to say, you know what? We need to boost the support of our athletic department by taking strength and conditioning seriously. Let me, increase the stipend. Let me see if there's a grant to improve the equipment. A lot of coaches said their equipment is from the 90s. I'm
Yeah.
going to say this: old equipment, I get it. I'm a collector of old equipment, but I collect equipment that doesn't break. Like old York barbell equipment does not break. But if you have this old equipment that was kind of like home gym model stuff, and you have 50, 100, 200 plus kids using it every day between physical education and sport teams, that is an accident waiting to happen. We had a dumbbell break in our weight room. I've never seen those hex dumbbells break. Our squat racks had these weird pins where sometimes they slide down. And I'm just like, man, a kid is going to rack a barbell too hard and it's going to take his arm off with them. And so you need equipment that is built to last. And the
Yep.
partners that we have with NHS SCA, when you go to the website, scroll to the bottom and look at any of the equipment partners. And they might have a slight discount. I believe they do. I'm not sure if they all do, but I'm pretty sure they all do when you are a member. And we don't partner with companies that are crap. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So, very important to be investing in the equipment, finding a grant, fundraising versus saying, hey, this equipment, it's fine. Listen, if it's almost a quarter of a century year old, it's not fine. That's not what we want the kids to be using. And nice stuff inspires more kids to come through. And who's this about? It ain't about us. The kids need to be on safe equipment. That's the truth.
I always say, and again, I got this from Coach Boone with our leadership, that do your job so well that they understand the value you bring to the program. So if they just think you're a sets and reps guy or you're the weights guy, that value may not be there because they can go do that at Planet Fitness or wherever. The value you bring is what you can promote, and doing community service with your group, doing those things. Having with our shirts that we do and showing the kids that the kids showing pride in what we do. I can't tell you how many of the shirts that we sold were out there today in the weight room, and they get excited to wear them, and they get excited to wear them around school.
And what's the money go to? What do you guys use that for?
I have a scholarship. Actually, I have multiple scholarships. It's called the Iron Red Devil Leadership Scholarship. So the kids write a essay about what leadership means to them after being in our weight room for 4 years, and based on how many I get, I can choose how many scholarships I give out. So last year, I believe I gave out 5. That was the most I've ever given out. It's $350 a scholarship for each kid. So,
Nice.
um, and they get a badass hammer. I get a. This is from Gary Keith. Gary Keith, if you're listening, I stole this from you, and I'm going to do it again forever. I have a cricket. I get a red and black hammer from Walmart. Another, no, we got to make them a sponsor now too. The kids get Iron Red Devil on one side, and the other side is their name and the year,
I
cricketed on the hammer.
Dude, check this out. So my buddy Dean Shantz owns Black Widow training gear,
Yeah,
blackwidowtg.com. He made me hammers for a fundraiser I do at my gym. They were beast. So I said to him, I want to do an award for football, and it's going to be called the Be the Hammer Award. So we are the War
yeah,
Eagles. So this is the War Hammer. So we had a War Hammer made for the kid who just shows leadership and relentless work ethic in the weight room. And I never have to talk to the athlete about working harder or showing up more. And it was a big, big hit. And he made it, the hammer was pretty heavy, and the kids were really fired up. So that was the first time we did it for football. We'll be doing it again. But I love the ideas. Like, you could sell shirts for fundraisers. You've done wristbands. There's a lot of ways you could hold a simple trap bar deadlift challenge at your high school, rising bar, where we keep adding a little weight to the bar and you get eliminated. And how much does it cost to enter? You could say $20 minimum, or you could say anything is the minimum. $1 could be the minimum. There is no minimum, right? And then they go and get sponsors. Go and get at least 5 people to give you a flat donation. And then we take those donations and purchase equipment. And every year you keep upgrading. So I think we gave the New Jersey strength coaches lots to think about, lots to
yeah,
implement. Go to nhssca.us, become a member, and then sign in. Go to the professional development area and get your learn on. What
yeah.
else? Anything else, Paul?
I think that's it. That's a lot. Let's keep putting out what we do into the community, into your community, into your administration, so that they understand the value of what we do. And before we know it, we're going to see strength coaches in every school that are qualified, certified, and ready to rock. And it's going to be a great ride once we get there.
Yep, in New Jersey. We want New Jersey to start getting on the level of Indiana. The Carolinas have
Yeah,
the full-time strength coach positions. And I often say, when this is done wrong, kids have died, which shows you how serious, kids have been hospitalized. The human body is very complex. We need qualified, educated coaches who understand how to do this. So if you need help in New Jersey, you can reach out to Paul and myself, send us an email, copy it, copy both of us on that email, and you could do a visit with us.
yeah,
We've done consultations with administration who wanted to get feedback on how to hire somebody. We had a superintendent visit you and I, and then he retired, right? No, he was the department chair and athletic director. He came with the superintendent. Then he retired, which was a bit
yeah,
heartbreaking. But if you're an administrator and you want our feedback on anything, please reach out. And Paul and I will be at the New Jersey Athletic Directors Conference on March 14th.
14.
So come see us at a booth. Come with questions, and come with cookies, please. Yeah, cookie
Yeah,
gods.
we'll have some.
Yep. Come with cookies.
We're going to get a steak afterwards.
That's what I was going to say. If you want to get on a good side, come with steak and potatoes. If you want to just, be surface friends, bring a cookie.
That's right.
All right, Paul, hang
Appreciate it.
tight. Give a 5-star review and share with a friend, guys. We're out of here. We'll talk to you guys soon.